TV shows. TV shows can be some of the greatest tools to tell a story. Today's setting where we are a bit oversaturated with so many different kinds of media. TV shows can make some of the most excellent source of storytelling, but they can also just be some kind of filler or uninspired piece of media that leaves you with nothing to reflect on and no connection to it. And right now, we find ourselves in a time where there is so much oversaturation with media that it's very shocking when we get such a amazing story told to us through TV shows. There are some notable ones of recent, but they are few and far between. Let me paint a picture for you. It's March of 2022 or something. The Batman comes out. This was a movie that, a lot of people were insanely hyped about, and others were, completely against seeing another standalone Batman movie after the decline of DC and after the superhero genre has been so overdone. But Matt Reeves was able to use this as an opportunity to revive this dying media. Today, eDog Reviews is tackling a TV show, which is a bit different than what we normally cover, but I've watched a lot of movies and television, and I have kind of a soft spot for truly great movies or TV shows that stick with me. It's one of my favorite ways to build a connection to a message or a story. I think that when you make a TV show and you have these long episodes that take place over kind of a long period of time, gives you a lot more room to build a cohesive story that will leave you reflecting on those characters and their conflicts and their struggles. But today, we are going to go over one that has gotten a lot of attention, but has not been so mainstream that, everyone's seen it or everyone is talking about it. But it's very notable, and there's a reason why people are giving it a lot of attention right now, and that is the Penguin. To make a story that is truly engaging, there's a lot of moving parts. There's the setting. You need characters that are fully developed, or if they're not yet developed, then they're going to be developed through a series of arcs across the story. And this show tackles these amazingly, okay? To start off with the setting, right? We have Gotham, which is kind of built off of the Batman movie. And it just does such an amazing job at creating this Gotham City where it feels accurate to kind of what we think Gotham is, but also to the previous movie. And it feels somewhat realistic. It feels like it has some depth that is believable, but it's filled with all of these problems, right? And what this show does so great about is it shows us that underbelly of the city, where if this was a real place, these are things that most of these movies don't really focus on, but it's what these people would, kind of how they would interact with this broken city and what they would go through. It feels so gritty, and I don't know. It's I haven't seen a lot of versions of Gotham that truly, hold a light to this one. So basically, when we're given this story, this setting, it allows us to frame Oz, if you don't know, the Penguin, his name's Oswald Cobblepot. They call him Oz a lot in this story. But it basically gives him opportunity to gain power in this city, but also to potentially bring order to some of the worst aspects of it. It feels very chaotic, like there's no one gonna save you, right? There are cops in this show, but you can tell a lot of them are either corrupt or absent from these communities. And a lot of this, I'd say like partially, like I'd say like 50-50, this is shot in daylight, broad daylight. Even though this has a connection to the Batman movie, I don't feel like I was ever watching this thinking, oh, well, Batman's going to show up and he's going to, save the day or whatever. But it's not like that, especially since our protagonist is obviously not a stand-up citizen or innocent in any of this. So, I mean, he wouldn't really be a helping hand in this matter. A lot of the framing of this setting is carried by the incredible cinematography. There's so many shots of the city or the slums or disaster or chaos that just really makes you feel like you're there with them in these situations. To go into this without bringing a lot of spoilers, they do a perfect job on the Penguin's character. They put him in this place, right, how they've set him up, where he's in a low enough place of power where you kind of root for him to get to the top, right? And so far, we haven't seen a ton of things that are telling us that this guy is like truly evil and we don't want to root for him, right? But he's still our protagonist, right? He's not the hero and he's not a good person, but he's our protagonist. So and it's framed through his point of view, which is going to make us, want him to succeed. Similarly to that, you could think of like The Sopranos, right? Like we know this guy, Tony Soprano, is a terrible person and we see that through his actions, but he's our protagonist, so we're probably going to root for him. Same with like Walter White. But those parts can often shift throughout the story once we see these other characters and we see some of their actions. It shows a lot of his humanity and making us kind of sympathize for him when we see how these other people in power kind of view him and show him a lot of disrespect. And there's a perfect dynamic, right, where we kind of know, right, because this show's called The Penguin, he's not going to die, but it keeps us kind of on edge because he still has these things that he can lose, and especially when it comes to his power and his plans. At no point was I ever watching and I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter because, he's going to be fine and it's going to work out. And then a lot of the great parts of his characters, there's like payoffs, right, to these arcs set up that are pretty reasonable, and there's not like all these contrivances and we're thinking like, oh, well, this is dumb, this wasn't earned, or this came out of nowhere. Things like that. It does a really great job of if something is going to happen that they're building towards, then they're going to start introducing it in the beginning and it's going to all come together. And it also does a great job of setting stakes and keeping us engaged. There's a lot of like cliffhangers kind of towards the ends of these episodes, but it never feels forced. It feels natural, and it feels like we want to continue to progress through this story. What makes these characters great in this show are their motivations, without a doubt. Because if you had this guy who he wanted all this power and he wanted this money and this and that, but we don't really know why he wants that, then I think his character would fall flat. But introducing these other characters around him, showing him his past and his mother, it really adds layers to this character where it's very believable and a very thought out character. And then in this kind of crazy setting, right, in these types of stories, we always need someone who's going to connect the audience and the rational and the moral to this story where these people are very sporadic or irrational or usually vile. And so that's what they do with Victor's character in this, because he's mostly innocent. And as we see, sort of becomes more and more corrupt because of the circumstance, but it allows us to view the story not just through our protagonist, but through this outsider, because we're an outside viewer to this story, and so is Victor. And especially in those like first 4 episodes, we really feel like we are trapped in this predicament where if Victor, right, leaves, then maybe he'll get killed, or almost like he's being held hostage. So now we're gonna kind of go into each episode. And the first episode, it gives us an introduction to a lot of these characters that we don't know yet, right? Because it's building off of these characters that were introduced in the Batman, but in order to have a cohesive story, there's a lot more characters that are going to do that. And so it sets up Sophia Falcone to be our antagonist. And at first we can't really tell. You know, she's introduced and we know that they have a past. And we know she was in Arkham. And so we don't know all these things yet about her. But she's eventually going to be the main antagonist. And so this is kind of just introducing her. And it also creates a sense because we know she was in Arkham. So, you know, we kind of think she's crazy. But then also the people are saying these things about her, about how she killed these people. And it's like, right now, like, we kind of just take that as fact because that's the information given. We don't really know for certain if that's true or not. Also, the introduction of Victor kind of shows us that Oswald holds a special place for someone that is, I wouldn't say handicapped, but someone like, for example, he has a stutter in this. And so I feel like that's what kind of connects him, because he has the bum leg, and it's a kind of a struggle for his character. And so he sees someone else with this, biological struggle, and he kind of sees himself through Victor, this young kid. But we can't forget that he literally takes him hostage, is about to kill him, all these things before he eventually joins in with him, which creates this feeling that he constantly has a gun to his head, and that if he messes up, then he's gonna die. And so that kind of we get some investment into his character. And then also this episode it starts showing us the ways that the Penguin is able to manipulate and get himself out of these narrow situations and kind of talk himself out of death. And then, we have this whole thing where he kills Sophia's brother. He's like a major crime dude, but he basically just insults the Penguin, and he gets a little angry, and he shoots the guy. So, and then that's kind of the inciting incident that's going to cause all this conflict, and it's going to kind of domino from there. But Sophia's onto him, and she's got her suspicions, right? She knows all these things, so she's trying to figure out. She's poking and prodding. And this episode's setting up like the dynamics of all these crime families. A lot of these things that happens to Oz, he, like 80% of it is like him planning and him manipulating, him talking. But then there's like 20% luck, right? In every victory that he gets, right? Because in this episode, Sophia kidnaps him, and it's like a whole thing, and she thinks he killed his brother, and she wants answers. And then, Victor, he plants the car, and it's got her brother's dead body in it, and he's basically framing it as if it wasn't him. And but that kind of sets us up to it's a pilot, so it's gonna show us like what we're getting ourselves into. Episode 2, we start getting like a payout of this information that Oz collected from episode 1, whenever it was when he killed the brother, and he found all this information and these valuables, and so this is kind of the payout to it, because he knows about this FEMA truck and this drug shipment. And so now he's starting to, he brings this to the crime family, and they're like, okay, we're gonna do this. But the whole time he's like an inside man. He has this other plan in mind because he's trying to take power. But it kind of shows this that whole scene with the truck and all of that stuff. It shows his connections to these characters, but also the violent nature that he does possess and his abilities that he possesses. Because, you know, you wouldn't see him as a super invulnerable kind of person, but he demonstrates in these situations that he's fully capable of coming out on top of a physical or violent altercation. Also, a lot of these parts, kind of like with Johnny Vito and the FEMA truck and all that, it puts us into perspective that he's not made yet, and that's like a mafia term, but he doesn't yet have the status to where if he messes up, they can't kill him. He's at a place where if he messes up or he does something wrong or he gets into one of these altercations, they'll just kill him because he's just basically a pawn to them. He doesn't really mean anything to them, and they don't have any investment in him, which is also kind of keeps us on edge and makes us kind of root for him almost, even though he's kind of, you know, bad. But the whole FEMA truck thing, he basically, since they like stole the money, or they did something, it was kind of important, I guess. But FEMA truck, he had an inside job and they killed the people, but now, right, Oz is alive and they're like, dude, what's going on? Like, you're alive, and there was a mole, right? So they're saying there's a mole. Now is the part of the conflict where they're trying to find the mole and who's kind of going against them. And so he basically has this plan where he's going to plant these diamonds on, I think, Johnny Vito in his car or something. And so he gets Vic to do it while he's inside this place. But he finds out two things. He finds out, one, that one of the dudes from that night is alive, and he saw Oz kill these people, or, you know, he knows that it was Oz or something like that. And he's going to give them information, and that's bad. So at first Oz is going to, you know, he finds this guy in the basement, and he's going to tell him, like, oh, just say it was Johnny Vito, and you're going to live, or something like that. But then Vic's plan with the diamonds, it goes to crap, and he fails. And so they were unsuccessful at that. He calls Oz, and so then Oz is like, well, crap, like, they're going to find out, like, this whole thing. So he kills the guy himself in the basement, and then he leaves. Of course, they find him, and he was trying to set up someone in that compound to be it, but then they get him all, and they're going to pat him down, and he has this knife on him. So he basically stages an altercation with this guy, and then he plants the knife on Sophia's, like, right-hand man, which is, like, kind of freaks you out. And of course they find the knife, and he's like, oh, it wasn't me, I would never. Boom, they kill him right there. And you're like, oh, crap. And so then, you know, Oz is all mad that Victor failed and he almost got killed. So they have to, like, I guess they got to bury the body, and I think Oz is in charge of it because it's like a crap job, you know, and they're like, make him do it, you know. But he takes Victor there, and he, like, literally makes him get in the grave, this shallow grave, and he's basically saying, like, if you mess up again, this is going to be you. You're going to be with him, which is kind of scary. But it's still episode 2, and so it's like we feel the connection that they're starting to build, but it still feels like there's a gun to Victor's head the whole time. He kind of starts to make an alliance with Sophia, right? He's talking her into it and trying to win her over. And so this is going to be like a theme of alliances, right? All these alliances and these manipulative tactics that the Penguin uses. Next episode, we get Sophia's backstory. We understand that she is innocent, in fact, and that she wasn't crazy and all this stuff, but she went to Arkham, and that's what made her crazy, and that's what kind of messed her up. And we know that her dad is actually the one who killed all of those strippers or whoever. I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but her dad is the one who killed him, and her mom. And then we find out she went to reporters trying to uncover like this mystery or whatever. And so Oz knew that, and he went to her dad and basically outed her for that, and that's why she got thrown in Arkham. And so that's kind of why there's this dynamic going on, and so now we kind of understand that. But now this is the episode where we kind of learn about Bliss, and it's this drug that, you know, they gave the Arkham patients, and that's what gave Sophia the idea to start pumping it out. But he eventually does gain the trust from Sophia by making a deal with like the triads, and then he admits to her, right? He like admits to her like, yeah, like I did gain a lot from what I did to you. And you're like, wow, like there's a lot of character development. They're gonna be partners, all this stuff. And then boom, the Maroni show up, and they're like pissed because Penguin made like an alliance with them, and they have to take credit for like killing her brother. But now they're like pissed because they know what Penguin's doing, and that he's like making deals with the Triad now, and he's basically double crossing them. And so he's trying to talk his way out, you know, and Sophia's right there. And then that's when they literally tell Sophia that it was Penguin that killed her brother and that she didn't know about it. Earlier, Victor, he wanted out, right? And he wanted to go be with this girl. But then he's like talking to Penguin, and Penguin's like, well, like, I'm not making you stay, you know, like if you don't want this opportunity I'm giving you, then see ya. There's the door, right? And Victor, he's like, well, I can't leave. And he's like, oh, because you think I'm holding you hostage? And he like points a gun at him. He's like, is this what it feels like being with me? Obviously, yeah, dude, that's how it's been this whole time. But now he's like kind of acting like that's not what was going on, and that it was a choice the whole time. So Victor gets pissed and he leaves. But anyways, we're back to this thing where the Maroni showed up. Well, how's Penguin gonna get out of this one? He's got a gun to his head, right? Boom, Victor pulls up, just runs over this dude. He's done. He's out for the count. You know, Penguin's like grabbing guns and he's like shooting some people, and then they like roll out, and they leave Sophia, and she knows now that he killed her brother. So now they're really gonna be at odds. And so then in episode 4, we get the backstory that is very humanizing to Sophia. And in watching this episode, right, it's like all about her. Okay, the whole episode's like she gets her own episode. It's almost like if this was shot from a different perspective, we would fully be on Sophia's side, because she was like the innocent one in all of this, and she was really just a victim of her circumstance. And but we kind of get to see what's going on with her. And then right after all the backstory's done, we go back to present day. We get yellow dress Sophia, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch it. Oh my gosh. This is where she confronts her family for all this stuff that's happened, and basically says she's the victim and they're trying to do all this stuff, and they look at her like an animal, and they're just like, yeah, whatever. Like, they're basically trying to make her leave the country, or they're gonna kill her, because she's like a problem for them. And so then she's like, okay, see y'all tomorrow, right? Boom, they all go to sleep. She gasses the place with a gas mask on. It's the whole thing. Everyone dies. She killed her family. You're like, what? She's you know, we were rooting for her this whole time. Like, she's so innocent, and now she you know. So that's what's crazy about the show. That's what's so, like, you know, it hooks you in with this character, and you're like, yeah, I hope this, like, they deserve this, and they deserve, and then they do something horrific, and you're like, oh my gosh. So it always pulls you back in before you get too far. You know, she does that, but she keeps Johnny Vitti alive, and he's basically gonna work with her and run everything. Yeah, that's where she really loses the majority of the audience's sympathy, right? Because you can't root for someone who's this maniac, you know. So now, with all of these people dead, she's in charge, right? She's the next one. But there was like a little girl. There was like a whole subplot. It's like kind of important, but it's whatever. Anyways, the little girl basically knows, so that's gonna be important later. But the cops are like, Sophia, this is kind of sus, and she's like, okay, well, you ain't got no evidence, so get out my hood. So that was the whole thing. She's bad though. I don't know why. Who wrote that in my journal? Episode 5, we kind of pick back up and we revisit Penguin. We had almost an entire episode without him. And he has like no cards to play, right? Sophia's against him, the Maronis are against him, and now Sophia's gonna go try to get with the Maronis, and she has all these plans, and she's in charge now, and that's bad for Penguin, and he's got no one around him really. So he takes the Maroni's son hostage, and that's basically how he's still alive. But what that does is we get this big theme throughout the show where if someone is in trouble or if someone needs to be motivated in a certain direction, then they just like take someone hostage or they just kidnap this person. And that kind of can get old. There was the mushrooms, right? The mushrooms for bliss. So that's what Penguin wants. He just wants the mushrooms, and he wants the Maronis off his back. So he's like, I'll give you the son that I just kidnapped, and you will give me these mushrooms, right? And then they get to this warehouse. It's obviously a trap, and they like shut the doors. He gives them the son, and then they shut the doors. And he's like, oh no, we're cooked now. Turns out the son was doused in gasoline, lights him on fire like a maniac, and so that's kind of freaky. You know, if you're scared of fire, don't watch that part, I guess. Skip it. And then they like get in the truck and they get the heck out of there. And he also sent someone in the prison to kill the main like Maroni guy. I don't really know what his name is, but it's really not important. It's like John Maroney or something. I don't know. But he sent someone to kill him, but that guy failed, and it leads to Maroni's escape, and he's able to escape from prison. So now that guy's out. Oz just killed his wife and son, and Sophia's after him. So everyone's after him, basically. There's this kind of funny exchange where he's like, they're on the phone, and the crime boss dude, he like tells Oz that he's cooked, and it was just kind of a funny like Gen Z brain rot moment. And then this is where we start to see, because we've seen Oz's mom, okay? And if I didn't really go over it, but she has these like mental problems. She's really old, and she has like almost dementia, but she's still in there sometimes, and you can kind of get a thing for it. But basically being moved to this place in these slums, and Oz comes out and he's like a failure. We start to see her hatred for her son, and that moment when she's like telling him to get off of her, it was just kind of hit you, but you don't really fully understand why that's going on yet, but it's very important. Oz is like, he's got the mushrooms and all this stuff, and then he basically comes up with a new hideout for this drug operation that he's going to try to build, because he's got to stay hidden from these scary people, but he's also got to build up and regain some power. So he goes into the metro system where he's like gonna hide, and he's gonna do these drugs, and he builds a crew, but also there's no power in these slums, right? Because it's a bad part of town. And the show does such a good job of making us feel, you watch that, you feel like you're in the apartment, freezing, no power, the generator doesn't work, it's a whole thing. And Oz is telling his mom that he's gonna get her out of there and all this stuff, but she's like, you can't do it. It's a sad struggle, because you want to see Oz succeed, you want to see his mom happy, you want to see him happy, but you also don't want to see these horrific things they're doing. Oz gets back to the house, which has no power, and his mom's like in this cold tub, and she's like she's having an episode, and it's a whole thing, and she basically tells him in a moment of clarity that if she ever loses it completely or is a vegetable, that she wants him to just kill her. And he agrees to this, right? And it's like a whole thing, and it's rough. It's just rough. This whole it's rough, man. There's this like this stripper girl. She basically is around Oz a lot, and he like pays her, and they have this relationship, right? But there was this part in like episode 5 where Oz is talking to her, and he used her as an alibi, and then she found out, and she was mad, and he was like, just stick with me, and we're gonna make it to the top. And she basically says, no, like, it's not about this anymore, like, I'm not staying with you after all of this stuff going on, and I'm not gonna cover your ass anymore. Oz basically, there's this part, Sophia's trying to find him, and her and the Maroney guy go to his apartment looking for leads basically to find him, and they find a picture of her and like her clothes in this drawer, which I believe at this point, based off of what has happened with her character and him and all of that stuff, I think he intentionally planted it there because he wanted her to basically get killed by Sophia, because he knows she's crazy, and she would probably think that that would like hurt him. But instead what happens is Sophia goes to meet with this girl to get a lead on it, and of course she has her at gunpoint. The girl thinks she's gonna get killed and all this stuff, but Sophia shows her some integrity and some character, and basically says that they're both victims of Oz and that they deserve a chance to be happy outside of these terrible things that he's done, and because they both feel very used by him, and that's how they relate. And so Sophia spares her, and that girl tells Sophia exactly where to find the penguin. So she folds on him, so that didn't go as planned. And then Oz, he plans, right? He's built up this empire for a long time. So now he's gonna try to go get the triads and these smaller gangs to all join together and stand strong against the Maronis and the Falcons. That's what they're gonna try to do. So he goes and talks to them, and he gives them this whole speech where he's telling them that those big crime families like don't care about them, and they just see them as nothing, and that this is their chance to rise up against them. And surprisingly, it gets them going, and they like, yeah, I'm on board, yeah, let's do it. And it takes some talking, but that happens. And then Oz, earlier, before this happened, he also went and threatened this councilman to fix the power, or he was gonna like kill him or something. So that was like interesting. But finally, at the end of this episode, the power does come back on in these slums, and it's like you're so excited. You're like, this is great. The power's back on. There's music playing. The mom gets up. She's like, they're like, her and Vic are dancing. But remember, Sophia knows where he is, and so she goes to the apartment, and off screen, she basically incapacitates Victor. Of course, it has to be off screen, because like, how? Come on, Victor. You can't be losing those. She had like a crowbar. I don't even think she had a gun on her. Victor, what are you doing? You're dumb, Victor. She's like 100 pounds. Anyways, she scrapped Victor up, probably hit him upside the head with that crowbar, and she takes the mom hostage. So another person, taken hostage. Oz gets kidnapped for the 69th time by this Maroney guy who finally found him, and so he gets taken hostage again. I guess not hostage. He just gets kidnapped, and of course they don't kill him yet because it's like, oh, they gotta do a whole spectacle first. So that's why he's still alive. But also we get this brutal backstory where we learn what happened to Oz's brothers, right? And we didn't know. We knew that they were dead, but here we find out, okay, Oz basically killed them. He left them in this drainage pipe, and he locked the door, and it was raining, and they drowned. So that's awful, and that starts reminding us of why this guy is so crummy. Sophia kidnapped the mom, and they get the mom back, and then the mom proceeds to just roast Sophia's ass so hard, and Sophia's like, damn, she cooked my buns are cooked. Sophia brings that therapist dude back into the mix. He always be simping for Sophia. Bro's really me for real, but she brings him in, and he's gonna basically get inside her mind and figure out what's going on. Oz crew then, there's this whole sequence, right? Because they kidnap the penguin, and he's like, take me to your operation, and I'm gonna, so he takes Penguin down to this operation, and he's basically tells these guys like, y'all work for me now. This is your boss. I'm gonna kill him. And then he's telling Oz, he's like, me and Sophia are gonna kill you, but not yet. Because Sophia's got to be there or whatever. But in this really badass sequence, they cut the lights and they retake control over this compound, and then we get a one-on-one Oz versus this Maroney guy. And low-key, It's back and forth. There's no clear winner. They're scrapping. They're hitting the gun. Oslo keeps giving them the ones, and then boom. Maroney, old man looking dude, heart attack. On the spot, heart attack. He has a heart attack. He falls down. Kind of lame, but it kind of speaks to Oz's character, how he just gets so lucky sometimes, you know. Oz basically makes a deal with Sophia, and he's like, look, I just killed this dude. You have nothing left, okay? I will give you my whole operation. You just have it. Come have it. And I just want my mom. That's all he's saying. Obviously, this is kind of his dumbest plan yet, right? Because he's telling Sophia to come straight to him, she knows where he's going to be. And it's so obviously a trap. Why would he just give it all to Sophia? And Sophia doesn't even want it anymore. She comes to the conclusion that she doesn't want to be in the business. She wants out, right? She realizes that. And so it's kind of a dumb plan, and I was watching this, I'm like, come on, you can do better than this. And they literally just sit and wait. And so she sends a G-Wagon, and obviously she's not going to be in it because he would just light the truck up. Why would she do that? This is dumb. But you could equate that to him being at the top of his game, and he thinks that he's just him, you know. But of course, it's filled with explosives, you know. What would you expect? And I thought this was just like small explosives, you know, you open the door, it blows you up. No, it like levels the block. And so he sees the explosives. He has like 20 seconds. He doesn't even tell his crew. He just gets out of there and like goes in this little tunnel and hides. And his whole crew just dies like on the spot. It was brutal. It was brutal to see that after, you know, the loyalty that these men just showed to him after they rose up against that force. And it was just a horrific scene of the aftermath of the rubble and these people that are in pain. Oz like wakes up, and of course he gets kidnapped again, right? There needs to be some kind of counter for how many times he's gotten. Maybe they will do a segment, you know, show how many times he got kidnapped. But it's kind of getting ridiculous. You know, this one random dude just like, hey, Oz, boom, whacks him upside the head. He's kidnapped. And then we realize what has been going on with Oz's mom. And we find out at the end that Oz's mom actually tried to get him killed when he was a kid because she found out that he killed his brothers. So that was a whole thing. And finally, we get to the finale. Ooh, finale. Vic went with those gangs, and they were going to go try to, like, see what's up with Oz. And then the bomb went off, and they're like, oh, no, it's a bomb. And so the other gangs are like, he's probably dead, so see ya. And Vic's like, dude, what the heck? Like, after all this stuff that he's done, and he's, like, tried to do for y'all, and y'all are just going to turn your back, and they're like, well, we don't care about him, we care about the product. You know, Oz is alive, and he calls this dude, no, he got kidnapped again, right? And this time Sophia's playing these weird mind games, but she's got this bad fit on, and it's hard to root against her. But she's there, she's got his mom, and she's got him there, and she's basically there to make Oz realize that her mom knows that he killed his brothers, and that she has always hated him, and that she's disappointed. And through a series of events, Oz will not come to terms with it, and he won't admit that he did that to his brothers. And eventually she's mad, and she's like, I know what you did. I've always known. I've always hated you. That's why I almost got you killed, and all these things, and you're such a disappointment. But then she like kind of freaks out, and she has like a stroke, and she falls on the ground, and she's incapacitated. And Oz freaks out, and he's like, he like breaks out of the duct tape, and he hits this guy with a stick, and he body shields him, and then pulls out a gun. He's like, bah, 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 bah. Whole thing escapes, right? 20th time getting kidnapped, 20th time making some narrow escape. But he does that. And then after that, he takes his mom to the hospital. Oh, his mom stabbed him, by the way. That was freaky. Yeah, she stabbed him. After that, he's at the hospital, and he's like gives her to the doctors, and then he's like calling Victor, like, bro, I'm alive. Come pick me up. And then Oz has this plan that he's formulating, and we don't really know yet. But he goes to the council, city council, and he talks to this councilman, and he's basically like, dude, listen, all this bad stuff that's happened, it was all Sophia, and it was the Maroney dude. And if you release this story and you capture her and you like do this stuff, then it's going to make you look better. Everyone in the city is going to be happier. Like, that's a straight up ticket for you, and it's provable if you go look at this rebel. And he's like, what do you want in return? And he's like, I just want a better connection and relationship to to you and these other people. And he's like, okay, well, you gotta be clean. You gotta be squeaky clean. And that kind of will be brought up later. Oz gets kidnapped again. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. He gets kidnapped because Sophia met with those the gang members that turned their back on Oz. And she was like, listen, I'm done. I'm out. I don't want no part of this. If you just give me Oz, the whole thing is yours. The whole thing is yours. Whoever gets Oz first, you win, right? Which, I don't know why they don't just, like, kill her and take it, because, like, no one's really left backing her up, but they're like, okay, and they play the game. But then this one dude that was, like, in the triads that knew Victor, he, like, tips Victor off, and he's like, bro, tell me where you're at. I'm going to come help you out, because they put a bounty on Oz's head. And so Victor goes to meet up with this guy, and Oz walks out, and they kidnap him, which is part of the plan, but we don't know. They kidnap him. This guy who's a member of the triads, he's the triad boss, he calls Sophia. He's like, bro, I got her. I got him right here, dog. What do you want me to do? And she's like, bring him to the airport hangar where I'm going to leave, right? And then there's a sequence. She's driving. She sets her house on fire. It was low-key cool. She's driving to the airport. She, like, has this Rick Ross moment where she's, like, looking out the window, and she's like, I won, you know. She gets to the airport, right? They got Penguin, the triads are sitting there, right? And they kidnapped these two guys. And you're like, oh my gosh, Vic got set up, Oz got set up, Sophia won. But Sophia's, like, talking mess to Oz, and he hits her with a smirk. He's like he hits her with that, oh yeah, you're done, pal. And she's like, wait, Lou, bro, hold up, what's going on? Boom, that guy standing behind the triad dude, boom, pops him in the head, then gets Sophia's girls, and they won. Sophia has no one left. Her plan went to crap, all for vengeance and this grudge she held against Oz, and he came out on top, and that's like the end of the conflict. And so his plan was successful. Oz is like, come on, Sophia, let's take a drive. And so you're like, okay, he's going to take her out somewhere and he's going to kill her, right? That's what this is leading to. And that's how it's framed. And they actually go back to the same place where he set her up the first time, which is just messed up. Because he gets there, right? And she's like talking mess. And then he's like about to shoot her. And then he doesn't shoot her and he leaves. But she doesn't know. She has like her eyes closed. She's like looking over there. That happens. Boom. Police show up. They take her into custody. And that's worse. That's worse for her because she has to go. She goes back to Arkham, and she's back in a cage, and she's like tweaking and this whole thing. And guess who her therapist is? The same one. It's like Dr. Rush or something. Bro, the same dude, and he's just, oh, it's a whole thing. Oz basically, he just got that taste of like the political power, and he used it. But he won, right? It's time for him to claim his victory. He goes to the hospital to see his mother. She's brain dead. She is gone. She's a vegetable. And Oz is upset. There's a very emotional scene that you really feel bad for him, and you're like, it's very emotional. It's very raw. The acting is insane on this, but he doesn't believe it, and so that's a whole thing. And then after that, him and Vic go sit on this bench, and he's like, man, Vic, I couldn't have done it without you. You've seen me at my lowest. You've seen all this stuff with my mom. You've been there for me. And he's like, things are going to be different from now. And I can't take you with me. And Vic's like, huh? Bro, chokes him out on the scene. He kills Vic right there. He kills Vic. After Vic, this whole thing, like, we love Vic. He's great. He's had all this arc. And then he, like, takes the money out of his wallet and takes his ID, so he stages it like a mugging. But it's just crazy, dude. It's crazy because that right there is what made us realize, and that's what like made us say, okay, this is like after this, there cannot be anyone who is rooting for Oz to win in this whole thing. Like, this is where the moment where you're like, I want Batman to throw this dude off the balcony, right? Because that genuinely just, it hits us, and we realize how like vicious and evil this guy it truly is, and there's no sympathy left in the tank for Oz. But as an audience, you need that, because you can't be rooting for this, terrible person. And then we get this crazy sequence where He's on the penthouse. He's dressed in this drippy fit. Bro, he kept his mom alive in the vegetative state after she said, don't do it. And he makes her like look out the balcony on the city, and he acts like she's happy, but she's not. There's a single tear that comes down her face, and it just, it's crazy. Like she's like it's like torture for her, but he's just so delusional that he thinks that this is what she wanted and that he did it for her. And then he goes downstairs and he's got this chick dressed as his mom, and he's acting like she's her mom, and he's like dancing with her, and he's like, tell me you're proud of me, tell me this and that. It's freaky, dude. This dude's freaky, but he won, and this is his ending. So, and then we get a little pan out, bat signal, boom. So yeah, great ending, great ending to a show. This show benefited so much from not featuring the Batman, because we didn't rely on him, and if you were expecting that and that's what you were here for, then that was gonna obviously cloud a lot of this. And the show without the Batman did so well. It didn't have to be carried by this prominent figure. And the pacing of this show is amazing pacing. There was the right amount of dialogue with characters and character growth and introduction and suspense. There was never a time like when you would be watching and you'd just be bored because it was a bunch of filler. There's always something going on, always something forwarding the plot. My only critique with this and what it struggled with is they used kidnapping people and like that kind of thing. They used that with like a little too much. Like I think Bro actually got kidnapped like 7 times, which is a little dumb, but I understand that's kind of part of his character to show us like how he can get out of those situations. There were a few characters that were just kind of mid and they weren't super interesting, but the ones that were fully developed they just stole the show, man. Sophia, Victor, Oz, his mother, these are some well-developed characters, and it kept the right amount of information from us in the right moments. Because in the times when we were cheering for Oz, we didn't know about his brothers. In the times we were cheering for Oz, we didn't know like why his mother hated him so much. We didn't know what he did to Sophia. And then even when we found out, we kind of were okay with it because of these things that Sophia would do. And it kept us guessing. It was great. And it was just the perfect length for a show. Any longer, it might have dragged a bit. Any shorter, it might not have been enough. And the cinematography, just bring it back. Some of those shots from the show are just incredible. The way that they would frame Gotham, they would frame the characters, they would frame the emotional stakes, all of it. It was incredible. Overall, if they made more shows like this, there would be a surge in this source of media. It's incredible, and you see these other companies trying to do the same. You see Disney Plus shows, and some people love them, but that's not. This is amazing. And those don't really meet this standard. And there's some shows similar, but so far I haven't seen anything like this. You mix just all these elements, and you make us root for and against our main character at the same time. It's incredible. I'm excited for the next Batman. But if you made it this far to hear me yap about this show that I really enjoyed, appreciate the support. I know it's different from the music reviews, but I kind of want to keep everything open. I'm not just going to do one thing. And when I see some kind of media or thing that is really I enjoy, or I think stands out in a group, I just really want to talk about it, and I would recommend anyone going and checking out this show. Keep a lookout for some more in-depth album reviews and maybe some movie reviews. Maybe we'll see what's going on. If you have any recommendations, just slide them to me, and I'll see what I can do. But adios.